We are talking about Rachael Rollins, the former U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts who left that post in disgrace 3 years ago, now reappearing on the political and law enforcement scene after she pulled papers to run for her old local job, Suffolk County DA. Adam, good morning.
Mark, hello.
So let's do this chronologically, back way up. Who was Rachael Rollins in 2019 when she took office as the Suffolk County DA?
At that point, Rachael Rollins was sort of a cause celeb in the local progressive community. She had a reformer's mindset about how justice should be meted out. She had a list of 15 offenses that she was presumptively not going to prosecute, the idea being that these low-level offenses don't really matter as much as the possibility of derailing someone's life for prosecuting them and getting them involved in the criminal justice system. So she was a figure beloved by progressives, and there was a lot of excitement around her election.
And then, she caught attention for that. She caught national attention for that.
She did. She was part of this wave of similarly minded reformist district attorneys who were elected in Philadelphia, I believe, San Francisco. It was kind of a movement, and she was one of the faces of the movement.
Yeah, and we'll remind ourselves that this was under the Biden administration. And then Joe Biden, 2021, taps her to be U.S. Attorney for Massachusetts. And by this time, we're beyond 2019. We're in a different context, which is important. So bring us to that part of her career.
Well, wait, when you say that we're in a different context, what exactly are you thinking of? You thinking of George Floyd's murder,
Yes.
for example?
Yes.
Yeah, we're in a moment where Black Lives Matter has become this national phenomenon, where this vision of criminal justice that Rachael Rollins has seems more important than ever. The changes she's talking about making seem more pressing even than they did before. Now, she was vilified by Republicans after President Biden tapped her to become U.S. Attorney. The vote was 50-50. Kamala Harris had to cast a tie-breaking vote. If I remember right, it might have even been 2 tie-breaking votes in order to get Rachael Rollins confirmed as U.S. Attorney. But she was confirmed, and it was a big deal. I mean, I remember when I heard that her name was being floated, I was surprised, and I thought, oh, wow, I didn't see her. I knew her star was rising, but I didn't realize it was rising as quickly and as high as it apparently was. That was my reaction at the time.
Yes, and as you mentioned, she was a darling of progressives, and this was a very progressive move by the Biden administration.
Surprisingly so, yes.
Yes, and I was saying to you, I remember covering local events when she was U.S. Attorney. And there was a feeling, I would say even like a surge of optimism and pride in her appointment, especially in the context of the rise of the Black Lives Movement.
And in the context of the people who supported her and shared her vision. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, so then there's a fall from grace. What happened?
I don't think we can overstate how profound that fall from grace was. She was essentially found to have, by 2 separate federal investigations, she was found to have inappropriately intervened in the race to replace her as Suffolk County District Attorney. She wanted one of the candidates, then Boston City Councilor Ricardo Arroyo, to win. She did not want the other candidate, acting District Attorney Kevin Hayden, to win. Arroyo had a vision of criminal justice that was more in line with Rollins. Hayden was seen as more of a moderate, and essentially what these 2 investigations found is that she acted, as one of them put it, as a de facto campaign advisor to Ricardo Arroyo, and that she tried to plant material in the media. She didn't just try to do it, she did it. Material in the press that was aimed at making Hayden look really, really bad and Arroyo look good, so that Arroyo would win the preliminary election. Just to remind our listeners, there's something called the Hatch Act, which prohibits partisan activity by federal government employees. One of these investigations called what Rollins was found to have done one of the most egregious violations of the Hatch Act that the investigators could remember seeing. And I should mention, there were other examples of misconduct that were unearthed as well, some of which seems small in comparison, getting 30 Boston Celtics tickets for a youth basketball program, keeping a couple for herself, then having a subordinate run the program when it took place. Things which in and of themselves are not great, but really paled in comparison to her attempt to put the fingers on the scale of the Suffolk DA's race.
Right. And it's just important, again, just to remind people, at that moment, she was a high-ranking official in the federal government.
She's the
based
U.S.
here,
attorney for Massachusetts. Yep.
but somehow felt like she couldn't keep her finger off the scale of local politics.
That's
somehow.
right. That's right.
So now...
Oh, and I should mention, investigators also found that she was not honest initially with them when they questioned her about what she had done, just to make matters worse.
So this resume of misdeeds that you've just laid out, this is what I think is so surprising, at least to you and me, and I'm sure many other people, that here she is. Kevin Hayden went on to win. He is the current Suffolk County DA. And I think you're going to explain to us that he has some backing from some pretty important people, too, we think. And here she is pulling papers to run against him after this resume of disgrace.
Well, in terms of the backing that Kevin Hayden has, I think there are a lot of people who were supportive of Rollins who have basically decided to cut ties with her. One of them being Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who has indicated to the Boston Globe that she plans to formally endorse Hayden. She hosted or co-hosted a fundraiser for him recently. And if you want to win an election in an area, in the Boston area, Michelle Wu is probably the most important person to have on your side. Now, I lost track of where we were heading.
Yes.
So she has the backing of Wu, but remind me, what was your other question?
So I guess my question is a bit of a mind reading one. What the heck is Rachael
Well, that's
Rollins
right. What was
thinking?
she thinking? Well, I think that perhaps she has concluded that we live in a political moment right now where political misdeeds people are willing to forgive political misdeeds committed by people who they see as representing them in an effective way. I'm thinking of President Trump. I mean, there was a time when it was inconceivable on January 6th. If someone had told you that President Trump was going to run again and win, I think you would have said that's impossible. It was not. What Rachael Rollins did very, very different than what President Trump did on January 6th. But I think there might be a notion that in this era, that sins that would have seemed unforgivable in the past are now, in fact, forgivable. And I would also say this is what she does. She's a criminal justice expert. This is her life. She's an attorney. I think she still fervently believes in remaking the criminal justice system along the contours that she originally wanted to remake it. So why not give it a shot, given those things?
Right. And I just want to clarify my tone of complete surprise is not about what I think about her or what I think anybody thinks about her as far as doing the job. I'm just talking about the political calculations. Wow, that's surprising.
Well, and I'm glad you said that because I think it's worth mentioning that while some Rollins supporters I think are just done with her, there are others who believe that she got a raw deal from the system because she was pushing so hard to reform it. And that group, I think she can count on their support in this election. Whether it's going to be big enough to get her old job back, we shall see.